Welcome back to the channel. I'm Austin, and that's Roman, and we are Fandom Fix. And today we're going to be talking about Reacher Season 3. So Season 3 recently ended on Amazon Prime, and I got to say, this is such a fun show, and I love it every time it comes back on. Alan Richardson really plays this part super well, and I love the supporting cast in every season. But this Season 3 was based on the 7th book in the series, The Persuader, and it had a different flavor to it than the first 2 seasons. And so we're going to be talking about what we liked, what we didn't, our favorite parts, and just overall the show in general. So, Roman, what did you think of Season 3?
I really enjoyed Season 3. It was a lot of fun. I did think, in my personal opinion, that Season 3 was a bit slower than the previous 2 seasons. I personally believe that, not to say that it was bad. It was very good, but I thought the tone was much different than in the previous seasons, and there was a little bit less. In the first season, we got a lot of. It seemed like he was kicking somebody's butt every episode, and then in Season 2, when there was like a 4-person team, that there was more happening because there was more of them. So maybe that's just why this one felt a little bit slower. But I really loved the characters that we saw in this one, the seasonal characters, let's call them, that Reacher is so good at populating their seasons with. Specifically, Susan Duffy, played by Sonia Cassidy, is probably my favorite seasonal character that we've seen so far, with Finley from Season 1 and a cameo in Season 2 as a close second. Yeah. But I just thought that Susan Duffy was she was Reacher's match. Like they had the same energy, and she was this tough-nosed Boston cop, which she played the Boston part perfectly, which is funny because Sonia Cassidy is British, and she really sold the Boston. And every time she had a scene, I was like, I just really, really like her. Like she's no nonsense. And I really liked the guest star of Anthony Michael Hall, and some of the other characters, or some of the other actors that were in this, like Brian T, who played the main bad guy, and obviously the guy that played Paulie being the only person that's matched Reacher or exceeded him in size. And there's the iconic line from Neely in Season 3 where she says, the only guy I've seen bigger than you is on Mount Rushmore. It was a fun season. Again, to say it was a little bit slower for me is not saying it's bad. Like I said, I think we were just spoiled by Season 1, but as always, they finished strong. Reacher knows how to deliver a final episode. Season 4 has already been confirmed. Pre-production has already started. And like you mentioned in the intro, season 3 was based on the 7th book called The Persuader. Season 2 was based on the 12th book called Bad Luck and Trouble. Season 1 was based off the 1st book called The Killing Floor. They have not announced which book they will be adapting for Season 4, but I know that Alan Richardson and the creator have their one they would like to do. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean that will be number 4. They have not announced it yet, so we will have to wait and see there. But Austin, what were your impressions of this season?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this season. I mean, the whole show has been good, and honestly, it's been a while since I've seen a show that I've really enjoyed all the way through, at least so far into the show. I mean, sometimes there's weaker seasons, sometimes, episodes fall short. But in my opinion, I mean, I know you think this season was slow, but I actually really enjoyed what you would call a slower pace, because we did get Reacher in so many heightened scenarios in the first 2 seasons. To get him in a scenario where the season starts off really solid, where he's in the town and you think he's saving somebody, and there's a shootout, and then you realize it was all like a plan, and it obviously backtracks and goes back to a flashback. I thought that was really well done, and what I liked was that it made Reacher kind of come to terms with some things personally that I don't think he's had to before. I mean, he's obviously has very close friends. I mean, he doesn't have many friends. Neely is pretty much his only friend, and then the squad that was all in Season 2, and a lot of them died. But he doesn't really have a lot of relationships with people, and he's a nomad. Right. He's on the go, and so to watch him really kind of become a brother figure or a father figure with Anthony Michael Hall's character's son, like, that was really cool. Yeah. And I liked to see it, because I mean, the son is very wimpy. He's a weakling. He's getting picked on, and Reacher's just like, what the heck? Like, this kid can't do anything himself. But it was really cool to watch how Reacher bridged the gap between him and his dad. And by the end of the season, we get kind of a reconciliation, before his dad dies. And, you really get to see that level of empathy and compassion that Reacher has. He's very stoic, and he's sometimes very blunt. But to watch him in that role was really cool to me. And you kind of got to see him talk about his dad a little bit too, which I think he's mentioned before, but you got to see that not only in the conversation with the son, but you also get to see that in the flashbacks with his original friend Dominique, who Quinn had killed. And so I feel like the son was a modern day version of Dominique, the way he the relationship was and the connection that they had. I thought that was really well done. But overall, I thought Brian T played that part super well as Quinn, sociopath, like so menacing, and obviously it was very jacked up of what he was involved in, especially what they were doing with that girl Teresa. And to watch him get that satisfying revenge at the end was incredible. I loved watching him get his head blown off, and it was not the way that I thought it was going to happen. But the moment Quinn realized who he was like, and then he was gone.
So, I was just about to mention that the moment where Reacher goes, her name was Dominique, and you see that moment on his face, and thank goodness they didn't write him dialogue there. Because that I like, there are moments where you don't need words, and that wasn't one of them. But you saw that moment where his face changed, and then Reacher kind of smirked and said, "Now you remember who I am."
Yeah.
And then he shot him. But to go back to your point about Richard, the son, those were some of my favorite moments from the season. Mm-hmm. The moments between Reacher and Richard. That's hard to say if you say it fast, but and you mentioned Richard kind of being like wimpy and kind of like this little runt of a guy. And you saw on his face at the end, the final scene where he gets in the car and he drives off, and then Reacher gets on the motorcycle and drives off, which was an awesome way to end the season, which brings me to a point that I thought this season, it was shot differently, and there was much more cinematic scenery in this season than in the previous two. But there was the moment when Richard gets in the car, he looks at Reacher almost for approval, and Reacher nods at him, and he gets in the car. But you can kind of see by the look on his face that obviously a lot has happened, but on his face it says, I've changed. I'm not going to be that wimpy kid anymore. No one's going to walk all over me anymore wherever I go next.
Yeah.
So
he had a giant smile on his face. It was like he was finally free from being under the clutches of Quinn and not really knowing what's going on with his dad. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And I definitely thought the episode, because we had an entire episode dedicated to Dominique. Yeah. And I thought that was one of the season's strongest episodes.
Yeah.
As far as emotional stakes, I feel like it was one of the highest episodes of the series as far as emotional stakes.
Yeah.
So that was really well done.
Well, it's episodes like that really make us realize really who Reacher really is. I mean, because even at the end of this season, Neely makes that comment about I know why you actually do what you do, and it's because you don't like the big guys who think they can get away with whatever they want to do. And he was like, you're just now figuring that out. And I think it's interesting because it's Reacher's such a mysterious character, and you never really know what he's always thinking. But then you get these really heartfelt moments where you're like, oh, this is truly what this guy's heart is. But he's such a badass.
I mean, loyalty has been at the center of every season of the show.
Yeah.
He got involved in Margrave in season 1 because somebody killed his brother. He got involved in season 2 because somebody went after the 110. And you saw how loyal he was to the 110 and how loyal they were to him, because one of the guys hit the computer password for the encrypted file was Reacher.
Yeah.
And now you see this where he felt a connection to Richard. And he obviously got to know Duffy, whose number one objective was rescuing Teresa.
Yeah.
And then it was revenge for Dominique. So loyalty has been at the center of Reacher's priorities from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, one of the last things I want to talk about is just Paulie, just a brute of a man in this show. They built up this entire season where they were going to fight. And, we got little teases here and there. Richard kept on saying, you shouldn't mess with him. He's going to do something. You got that scene in the gym where he played that prank on him with the arm wrestle. But I think what was great is you finally got this fight at the end, and it did not disappoint.
It was half the episode was them fighting.
Yeah. And I love that fight because you had so many expectations for it, and it pretty much sprawled across the entire property of that.
It just
even
kept
in the
going.
water. Yeah.
Even when he's in the water and he like gives him the throat punch and he kind of disappears, I was like, oh, that's it. And then here he comes like wobbling up the thing. I'm like, there is no way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude.
And I love how it ended with him. You know, there was such a fast-paced scene in the guard, shack, and with the gun, the machine gun. I did not notice that Reacher had switched it around, and the fact that he switched the bullet around and he plugged the barrel, and that's how he died by blowing himself up was awesome.
I didn't notice either, but I've seen that happen. If you've seen the Shooter TV show,
yeah,
a similar thing happened where Swaggart switched the bullet.
Yeah,
and so somehow as soon as as soon as Paulie had the gun, I was like, I know what's going to happen here, and that's what happened. But and there was actually a report that came out the other day that scene where Paulie throws Reacher like through the table, Alan Ritchson actually got quite hurt. Mm-hmm. He was like that was the most pain I've ever been in my life.
That's crazy.
Like I think he had to go to the hospital.
Oh wow!
So it tells you the authenticity that this show tries to bring.
Yeah. Well, we would love to know what you think out there about this show. What is your favorite parts of season 3? Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite scene? We would love to know. We're ecstatic about this show. We continue to love every moment of it. We can't wait till season 4. So let us know in the comments down below. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss another video from us. But until next time, we're Fandom Fix. See ya.